Welcome to the Reinvention Code. I'm your host, Dorinda Walker. Reinvention isn't random, it has a code. On this podcast, we'll explore what it really takes to navigate life's transitions with introspection, faith, and strategy. If you're evolving, rebuilding, or stepping into a new season, you're not just starting over, you're leveling up. Let's decode your next chapter together. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode. Today's guest is someone I've had the pleasure of working alongside as part of the executive production team for HBCU Honors. So Sam was pivotal in helping bring HBCU Honors to broadcast. And what I recognized in Sam almost immediately was his servant leadership and kind spirit. In an industry that can often feel driven by ego, Sam leads with humility, consistency, and a genuine love for the work and for the people around him. He's also one of those people where if I had an opportunity to pick my team for a project, I'm picking Sam every time. Sam Walker is a veteran television executive and producer who spent 27 years at BET, helping shape some of the network's most iconic program and cultural moments. From the BET Awards and Soul Train Awards to Rap City and the BET Black College Tour, today we're talking about fatherhood, reinvention, the changing media landscape, AI, and what aspiring creators need to understand about building a career in an industry where the rules are changing in real time. Please welcome Sam. Sam, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So, for those who may not know you, how do you define who you are today beyond the titles?
I'll say, I'm just a everyday guy that's very observant of trends and what takes place around me. And, outside of all the business and what I do for a living, I'm just a very observant person. But I try my best to just find ways to be modern, I guess. As we get older, it's just one of those things that you kind of wake up and you realize, like, okay, I'm not getting any younger, but at least I can be knowledgeable of what's around me and what's happening around me. So outside of work and everything, I'm just a very observant person that just pays attention to my surroundings.
You and I shoot the breeze quite often, and I think
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we're veterans in our careers and we've been able to maintain our careers is because we keep on top of the trends. So how important is that in an industry like the entertainment industry?
Man, it's very important. I mean, the industry is constantly evolving and audiences are constantly changing. I tell everybody what I liked in the 90s and then, late 80s, 90s, 2000s. I mean, there was a vast difference between what was happening in the 70s and what I liked in the 80s. So you can only imagine how vastly different what's happening in the 2020s is from what's happening in the 2010s. So if you want to entertain, if that's what you say you want to do, then you have to, be cognizant of your audience and how things are changing in the world. Now, I mean, there'll always be an audience for what you have to give. But if you want to reach a wide group or a wide range of people, you just have to be mindful of, it's not, what's that saying? You can't raise your kids like you were raised because that world doesn't exist. I mean, you almost have to have that philosophy if you want to be in the entertainment industry and if you want to have any sort of longevity and stay in power.
Love that. So we're going to talk more about that later. But take me back for a moment. Who was Sam before the career? So what experiences shaped you early on in terms of wanting to have a career in the entertainment industry?
So who was Sam before this? Sam was a kid from the Bronx in Mount Vernon, New York. That's who Sam was. One of the things about being in the industry for so long is when I think about before the industry, I mean, I'm talking high school, college, like I really started that young. I'm gonna tell you, I was a dude that loved music. Funny enough, I got into television because of music. I was a stereotypical dude that you can think of from uptown. I was about rapping, hanging out with my boys, kicking it in front of the record shop, really listening and loving music. I went to school on Fordham Road, Fordham Prep High School. Shout out to Fordham FP. I was just a person that loved music. Like I always loved culture. I mean, I tell people it was really hip hop culture that saved me. But I moved back and forth in and out of New York for a little while when I was younger. And it was really, as that culture was developing, it was really that culture that helped me learn like how to dress, how to talk, how to walk, like how to kind of be a part of everything. And it helped me kind of transition into just the person that I became in terms of I just really just loved the culture and embraced it. So who I was a hip hop head, I was a rapper, I was the record collector. I was very good with math, so I actually went to school for engineering before I switched over to playing with the toys instead of making them, and graduated with communications and a communications degree and a minor in theater. I actually used to write plays. Yeah, that's kind of who I was, and I was the kind of guy walk around campus. I mean, have fun, middle of campus, cracking jokes, of course, rapping, like I said. I was very jovial, I guess, very fun loving, but I was always somebody that people came to when they wanted to kind of know what was going on in hip hop, New York, everything. Like, I was always that person.
So actually, finding out that you have an engineering background says a lot, because one of the things I like about working with you is your attention to detail, because a lot of men don't have that I've worked with. Because I don't mean to stereotype men for my listeners out there, but I just don't come across it that much. So I love that about you. And then also we have music in common. I can remember, so my mother was an aspiring singer. So she used to take me to New York to the studio with her, during the on evenings in the week and on the weekends. And I actually remember the first time I fell in love with rap music was on 42nd Street in New York. Somebody had a big boombox and Rapper's Delight came on. And I felt like
Nice.
that just changed the world of music around me. So that brings me to just happy memories. So we do have that in common. You became a father in your 20s, and you said that it grounded you. So how did becoming a dad influence your decisions and the man you became?
Man, that was a big one. I was in DC. I went to GW University, did internships, and then through the old adage of a friend kind of thing, I finally got in the door at BET at the bottom level. And I was a PA. I was cleaning the studio as well as helping out talent, doing all the basic stuff. But at that time, BET brought the entertainment industry to DC. So I didn't really have to leave DC to be a part of this. We all know LA and New York were the foundations, and then of course Atlanta came later. So about 3 years in, 3 or 4 years in, that's when I got that news. So from my girlfriend at the time, of course. And it was like, oh wow, I'm having a daughter. It was so funny. It was not funny, but around that same time, that's when that shift was taking place at BET, when BET was moving to 106 in Park and BET was leaving DC. If anyone gets a chance, please take a look at the Rhapsody documentary because, we had a chance to really tell that story. But all I have to say, BET was a cornerstone for entertainment in DC and it was moving to New York at that time. And when that move took place, obviously everybody that worked in DC, well, not everybody, but a lot of us had the opportunity to move to New York. And having my daughter in DC and having her mom in DC and my foundation in DC. And it was like, wow, there's an opportunity to move to New York, but my foundation was in DC. And I chose to stay in DC. But we still had an operation in DC, very pared down. But if you think about it, if you're in entertainment, why would you stay in DC when you have the opportunity to go to New York? Now, let me be frank. Part of that was because I grew up in New York and there were certain elements that I didn't necessarily want to return to in New York. So and I also didn't want my daughter to grow up with those elements when I knew DC was such a better place, at least, where we were for her to grow up. So I say she really changed it because she made me stay grounded in the fact that, you know what, dad, you can, and granted, she's not even a year old. So this is just the spirit she's giving me. It's like, you can still be a part of the industry from here in DC and you can still do that over there while doing this over here. And that really is kind of what helped me throughout my career because I never I never became one of those industry guys. I mean, I hope that I'm respected in the industry, but I never became an industry guy. I was always a guy that worked in the industry. And it was because of my daughter being there and being a father and knowing that I want my daughter to see me, have me around, not just when I pop in, because her mother had a really good job here in DC. So she wasn't leaving her good job, nor would I had her leave her good job. It really taught me that family and making sure that I took care of my own was more important than just chasing fame, if you want to look at it that way. And because I was able to separate the two, it really helped me out because whereas most people are just immersed in industry, I always had an opportunity to kind of go to work. When I left that campus, I was back in the real world. And when I used to go to New York and I used to see my counterparts in LA, it's like they never had an opportunity to leave that world. Like it was entertainment from the moment you woke up to the moment you went to sleep. So it was very pivotal, you know, choosing my daughter, my family at that time. But the point being is that it helped me realize I'd be better off as a person who can provide content to my audience by still being one of my audience as opposed to simply just being a content creator and a producer who's just immersed around the industry. Because a lot of people don't realize when you're in the entertainment industry, it's like you can get into a cloud, like this false world, lose touch of reality. Like that's why you see a lot of what you see in the entertainment industry because you're just constantly surrounding it. So having a base is critical for you to even survive. And that decision, to stay in DC, watch my daughter grow. She's grown to be a wonderful young woman. Like it really kept me grounded and it really helped me balance out what's real in terms of my life and then what's entertainment in terms of my career.
So I have not had the privilege of meeting your daughter, but when you talk about her, the love, it just exudes off of you, right? So what are the joys and challenges of being a girl dad?
Man. You know what? You might as well ask me on what stages. First of all, being a parent in and of itself, it's one of the greatest gifts that you can have or give in this world. I mean, just to see that this person has you is you. That's your creation. Like you've created this for the world. And then no matter what you do, this is almost proof that you exist in this world. So that's like, amazing. When you're young, of course, being a girl dad is a little tough in the very beginning because, of course, it's your little girl, but you're also like, okay, I don't even know what to do with a little girl. I mean, for some reason, mothers have a gene that just crosses over sexes. So, whereas dads, it's kind of like, okay, she's my little girl. What do I do? What do I? But I say the challenge first is just kind of figuring out how to relate to a little girl, which, by the way, doesn't really get that much better as they get older, but I will say that protecting your little girl as a father, especially, that's challenging. With boys, you should protect your little boys too. But with boys, there's just a certain level of carefree that you kind of have it. And I'm sorry if I sound sexist, I apologize. It might be the Jamaican in me. With boys, you're like they can run wild a little bit. With little girls, you're like, no, 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 that's my little girl. Being in the entertainment industry, course, there's always those things that you think of. Like, I mean, definitely when having a little girl, as I started to look at imagery, I started to say to myself, like, wow, I have a little girl. Like, I got to be mindful of what I do, how I create content. The greater point is just having a little girl. You do think a lot about you, the messages that you're putting out there. It softens you up. I hate to say it, fellas. It softens you up because I hate to say it as a parent, and I think you know this. There's so many stages of parenthood. Like my daughter's in her 20s now, so it's like it's so hard. Like we could talk all day about the different stages of parenthood, but I think the toughest part really is just knowing that you have to protect your child and protect your daughter and make sure that you give her a sense of strength and power and you also make sure that you don't, I mean, I don't want to sound overly protective, but make sure you're real but you also are very protective, I guess. I hate to sound redundant when I say that, but now the wonderful things are is that, daughters will come out and come up and give you a hug. She'll give that 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 I guess affection that you'd want from your child, whereas your sons, granted, I don't have any sons, but I've seen my nephews and stuff, and they'll be like, "Hey, what up, guy? You feeling better?" Whereas your daughter will be like, "Dad, what can I do? How can I help?" Just watching the wonderful woman she's become, watching some of those lessons that I've taught her, and just seeing it manifested in how she's become a person, an adult. I mean, those are great things. I mean, she's very into the church. Has a very budding career. She's doing her thing. So I don't care what television program or movie you make. I mean, there's no greater creation than your child. You know.
So you know what? I'm a mom of both a daughter and I have two sons. And my daughter's the oldest, and my middle son, they're 6 years apart. And I have to tell you, when I had my daughter, it was kind of easy breezy. And I don't know if it's because, I'm a girl too, but you give her some toys, she played, she didn't like run around and act crazy. When I had my son, I was like, "Did he come from another planet? He's jumping down 2 flights of stairs. Is he trying to kill me?" I was like, it was a shock to me, whereas my husband was like, "Oh, this is normal." So, yeah, so
Yeah.
funny that you shared, what you shared, but how
Yeah.
the experience are when it comes to genders, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I was just gonna say, but I think some of my greatest life lessons came from my children.
I'd agree. I'd agree.
So you spent 27 years at BET helping shape
Yeah.
some of the most iconic programmings in the culture,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So what did that experience teach you about how the entertainment industry really works?
Like I can probably teach a course on that. Obviously, who you know is a very, very big part of the entertainment industry. Networking, we can just kind of put that under that umbrella, making sure you're in the places you need to be. You know what? I'm going to go a whole nother route with this question. The first thing you need to really know is what do you want out of the entertainment industry? I think there's so many people that get in the entertainment industry, whether in front of the camera or behind the camera, and they don't even know why. They have no clue. I I like what I like the lifestyle someone lives, so I want to be in entertainment. Well, you're only seeing about 5% of the entire industry, if you're seeing 5%. Oh, I want to be popular. Once again, popularity, okay, yeah, people might see you, but that doesn't equal money. That doesn't equal safety. What about the privacy that you're enjoying now? You think you're going to be able to do that after you get into the entertainment industry? Maybe some people think that it's going to give them more friends. And you realize that, I mean, I do have some lifelong friends, but it is a very transactional industry. It really is. I mean, for the most part, you're lucky if you get a handful of genuine friends throughout because everybody's trying to go for the same, get to the same place. And as you can see, like you have to really get yourself in the right group of people if you really want to grow.
So what I'm hearing is in the entertainment industry, your network really determines your net worth in terms of your experiences and opportunities.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. But I think I'm going to take it a step further to say that your network definitely impacts your net worth, but you also have to make sure you don't lose yourself because I think sometimes what happens in the entertainment industry is people lose themselves. I was talking about, what was going on with Megan Clay to a friend recently, and I'm definitely not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But what was interesting is that we were talking about the difference between Megan Pete and Megan the Stallion. And it's like, as she tries her best to be Megan Pete, people won't let her stop being Megan the Stallion. I think of my own career and I say, I'm Sam Walker to a lot of people just who know me, but then I'm Sam from BET to a lot of people. And sometimes I have to take a second and say to them, no, Sam from BET, that's a company, that's a person who worked at an opera. I'm also just this person. And I just say that net worth, definitely. But I also say that you definitely have to know who you are and where you want to go and where you want to take it. Because you can have a lot of net worth, but you might not have any direction.
Yeah, I love that. So that brings me into the next question. So the industry you came up in was built around broadcast and cable, but today content is everywhere and audiences are fragmented. So how has that shift changed the game in terms of production?
It has changed everything. I mean, even what we're doing right now. I mean, 20 years ago, this would have been a $10,000-$20,000 proposition. We live in an on-demand society now. 20, 30 years ago, you just had to catch a show when it came on air. If you missed that show, you had to wait next week. I mean, or luckily, if you had a VCR or something like that. The biggest change really is that television and media used to bring people together in a sense that it was such a limited scope that, if you only have 4 channels, 5 channels to watch back in the old days, then whoever you meet, whatever stranger you meet, wherever you go, there's only 4 or 5 channels. And then when cable came, it still only made it about 40 channels. And even when cable exploded, there was still the main channels that everybody watched, where I can go to Tucson, Arizona, and if I had a shirt on that said the popular show Cheers or whatever the show of the time was, the different world. Oh, I watched that show. Oh yeah, yeah. Now people people just watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. So you can't just put something out anymore and just know that there are going to be eyeballs that are going to watch it. And if the worst that could happen to you, you put it out there, people don't like it. Now, when you put content out, you got to hope people even find it. Like that's the biggest difference really is just we never used to have to worry about people finding our content. Like we didn't have to worry about people finding BET. Like everyone knew where BET was. Now, because of cables kind of, sort of went away and this idea of watching at a certain time, we towards the tail end of my tenure there, it was like, how do you even get people to sit down and watch TV? And I think that's really been the biggest change and challenge in there. Because now, for the first time, television's on par with the internet. You'll indulge me. I remember when things were changing, I got this big TV, I don't know, 80-inch TV in my basement. And I'll never forget, my daughter and a couple cousins came over and they were watching YouTube on my 80-inch TV. Now, at first glance, to the average person, it might be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. To me, I'm like, if you're watching YouTube on my 80-inch screen TV, that means you're not watching television. And I need people to watch television to make money. And you're taking up that time on YouTube, which is not even being measured. It's a wrap. At that moment, I knew it was a wrap. I was like, the countdown has begun. And that's appointment television doesn't really exist anymore. People know they can get it when they want to get it. Unless it's an event or something that's big enough that like you're afraid that if you miss it, you missed it, i.e. like a sporting event or something like that. Getting people to stand still, watch something at the time you need them to watch it is almost moot. People can get what they want when they want it. And there's a lot of niche. And I think that's the third pillar that a lot of people don't realize. There's a lot of niche. And if you're like somebody likes cooking, there was the food channel, whatever, but you still had to take a break. Now you can go from the food channel to a food blog to a food YouTube to a food, like you never have to leave that world. It's so hard because there's a thing called share in the industry. And it started to turn from fighting for viewership to fighting for share. and and basically share just means that people who are already here, you're trying to snatch them away, you know, and because you can't just get them to you. And that to me has been the biggest change.
I'm a member of Gen X, so I
Yeah.
came up, when BET was at its prime. I don't pay for cable. Like, I have Netflix, I have Hulu,
Mhm.
I have the YouTube T TV, and I like to binge watch programs, so I'm not gonna go and watch a program every week. I'll wait till it's finished, and then I'll go binge watch it because that's just, like, how I like to consume media. But if I turn my TV on more than twice a week, that's a lot.
Mhm.
'Cause I'm always on my iPad, and now I'm a TikToker, like, I love TikTok,
Mhm.
I think.
Mhm.
So it is amazing how the industry has changed. So for someone listening who wants to build a career in production or content creation, how should they be thinking about success today, knowing that broadcast and linear are no longer the only path?
I think within their question is really the answer. What is success? Going back to kind of something I said earlier, why are you doing it? We now live in this era. Somebody comes to me and says, Sam, I want to create a show. And they give me the basic elements. If they're not talking about something that requires special effects of a avatar, like, nature, then I'm like, then why don't you just do it?
I think for content creators, I think the monetization is the hardest challenge. And, you and I talk about this a lot. When you need to pay to get the production up and running, and then how you make money on the back end, I think that's changed significantly from a traditional media model. So I think those are the things that people are trying to grasp and figure out. Well, I have all these great ideas. And if I bring them to life, I don't want it just to be a hobby. Like, how do I monetize it? And I think that's the greatest challenge that content creators are facing right now.
No, and I agree. I agree. And I think that even with monetization, I think that you also have to once again ask yourself, what is the goal? Like, because here's the thing, I'm not a master in this. I'm still learning about new media. But what I've seen just from the people who've been successful, I've seen consistency. I've seen people who have leveraged other areas of their lives to turn that into new media. If you're coming blind, let's just say you're a bus driver and you just want to get into content creation, then the thing that I really tell everybody is just go do it. Like, because it's really going to be trial and error. Here's the thing: the difference between trial and error 10 years ago or 20 years ago is trial and error cost a lot of money. Now, for a fraction of that, you can do a web show, a webcast, do what we're doing. And the truth is that, and here's the beauty of this. And this is something a person like me should never say, but I'm going to tell you something. We have a generation of kids or younger people, especially the TikTok generation, let me say, or as and I don't put an age to the TikTok generation. I just call them the TikTok generation. You don't realize that your brain is now conditioned to watch amateur video and you don't even know it. Like, you know it in a sense that when you're doing something very large and yeah, that needs to look a certain way. But if you're watching TikToks all day or you're into that kind of vibe, then do you understand you watch content that a person is just holding up an iPhone or putting an iPhone on some sort of a pedestal and you're watching that all day and they're using CapCut or something to do it. Monetization and all that stuff. I mean, obviously that comes with the viewers and that comes with getting enough of fan base and things like that. And I've heard that consistency is the key, but creating content and creating art has never been easier in this day and age than it is now. I mean, that's AI. One of the things I'm really into right now is AI, learning AI. How can even projects that you and I do, like how can we use AI? because it's like the grand equalizer. I mean, granted, now AI is going to eventually kill us, like, Terminator. But before it kills us and it does away with us, do you realize, like, you can actually do a movie in AI, and all it really takes is just time. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because for those who may not know, I don't run my own social media. So I have someone who's creating AI content. And she said to me,
Mhm,
Dorinda, your AI content is outperforming you. And I
mhm,
found that to be interesting. But,
mhm,
I feel like if we don't embrace the technology and figure out how to use it effectively without eliminating some key roles. So, what keeps me up at night is, I can create, like, I want to bring my book to life, right?
mhm,
So now back in the day, I was trying to get a movie deal and, get actors on board and all that. Now I
mhm,
can just do it with AI and I don't have to be bothered with all the mess in Hollywood to get my
mhm,
project done. And so I
mhm,
am going to be working on that. But
mhm.
AI is good in some aspects, but then you think about it, if I'm using all AI characters, what does that mean for actors 10, 20 years from now? Do they go away? Like one of the biggest chart toppers right now is an AI voice.
Mhm.
So, what does that really mean for the industry, and how do we create regulations so that we don't lose the humanity in our stories? So, I think that's something that we have to deal with as an industry, and there's not any regulations or legislation that really makes sure that we keep the integrity of AI in a place that doesn't disrupt our humanity.
I'm going to tell you the only reason why the entertainment industry is still around right now, though probably only two reasons: sports and news. I will give movies a little bit of a blip because there is something about watching certain things on a big screen, but like live events, news, sports, those two, uh, I guess, pillars are what's keeping this industry alive right now. And that's why it's worth billions of dollars. We now in sports probably more than news, but that's it. Like if you look at the ratings or anything like in terms of what like even the top podcasters and stuff like there's some piece of it that they that they have. Even Joe Rogan. I mean, obviously he still has some political undertones. Even Candace Owens, whether you believe in her or whether she says or not, is still one of the most popular podcasts. Like right now, I hate to say it, the industry, and I hate to sound pessimistic. I love everybody, y'all, but we have a generation that grew up on Roblox and anime. They don't care about who the star actor and actress is anymore. They don't. Like we care about it, and we will continue to care about it because we grew up in that generation. There's just something about Denzel, doing his thing. Just watching these A-listers, but they didn't grow up in that generation. They grew up, K-pop hunters. They're not wed to this idea of movie stars. They're not wed to this idea of realism being how it has to be presented to us. We grew up on sitcoms that showed everyday life. They the Roblox kids, they didn't grow up on that. They grew up in a world where virtual and real are the same thing. So what does that mean for the future of the entertainment industry? I don't know. But I do know this, there's not a need anymore. And that's part of the problem. Like theater, television, it all came from the need to get away. It all came from the need to be together. It all came from that need, especially after COVID. That need isn't there, and until we find a way to make the television viewing experience, the movie film experience, something that people need, and we find a way to they also need to us. They need it. That's really the only way that the industry will be able to survive. Because 10 years from now, other than sports, other than maybe news, it can all be virtual. I mean, your book can be just as wonderful a production if it's animated as if you had the real characters. And I am a huge proponent of humans, let's be clear. But even I know that my daughter, she consumed anime more than she consumed you know, like anything that was popular on television.
And I would say news is gonna be dead, like cable news and, broadcast news. I think that's gonna be dead because
Mhm,
now, unfortunately, with a lot of the news that's being censored by the current administration,
mhm,
we're relying on, individual broadcast folks like Don Lemon and Joy
mhm,
Reid, who are no
mhm,
longer on cable,
mhm.
our news and to get it real. And, Aaron Parnes, I follow him. So yeah, I think, cable news, that's gonna be a dying breed as well. But I
Mhm.
wonder.
Well, cable in and of itself is a dying model. Like, let's call that what it is. I mean, it is the biggest contradiction in business if you think that's a contradiction, conflict in business. You have an industry that relies on subscriptions to cable, and you have these broadcasters who want more money from the cable owners in a time when cable owners are losing subscribers because nobody wants to pay for cable. So how does the cable industry even sustain itself knowing that people don't want to pay for the product, yet the people who are providing content want more money for their product than they had, So I just think that that model is destined to fail simply based on the fact that, you can't squeeze juice out of a fruit. I mean, but so much. I mean, no one I know, like 90% of people I know do not have cable or are not attached to any cable like brand. They're completely either Netflix, they have a few streamers, and they're good. And you could see that the majors are moving in that direction as well, which is why you see a lot of like live content on streamers now, because they're probably going to say, you know what, forget the cable model, or at least keep it while we still have money here. But we might as well put it on Paramount Plus, Peacock, or whatever. And it's the same thing.
So I'm gonna pivot because you're now building your own company after decades in a system, right? So what's been the hardest part of shifting from that structured environment to creating your own opportunities?
My mentality is probably the hardest thing. It's definitely a shift from coming into an office and having all these, tasks put in front of you to now you have to generate your own set of tasks. So I'm going to start on a personal level. I think that has definitely been the toughest part, just kind of creating my own tasks. Like I have goals and objectives, but creating the tasks that continue to kind of help build my company. And I mean, let's call it what it is. When you leave a company, of course, people call you back and they want you to do different jobs. So you end up, that's kind of the first thing that you usually have if you left on great terms. So in building my company, it's like, okay, I'm open for business, and people call me, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. But you're pretty much just doing what you did at the company you left. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you're not really building your company as much as you're kind of just continuing what you did. And building a company, the first thing you got to realize is how do you scale yourself? Like, how do you build? So that's the first big thing. Learning how to scale yourself. Like, just what is your value? What do you charge for things? What is the 5-year plan? Those things are hard in and of themselves. So I think on a personal level, I have to start there.
So one of the biggest lessons I learned from leaving corporate into going into entrepreneurship
Mhm,
is you don't have, to your point, the structure that you had in a corporate environment, the
mhm,
assistant, the media team, the production team, whatever those
mhm,
teams are that helps you pull it all together and be great in corporate.
mhm,
When you
uh-huh.
leave that, it's like, okay, I have to not only create, but I have to do it in a way that I'm building
Yeah.
and leaving a legacy, right, and a financial stability for myself. And I think it's a slight mindset set shift. I know, at least for me, that was the biggest mindset shift. Like, how do you do
Uh-huh.
this without that controlled, structured environment? And I think one of the greatest lessons I learned that makes me successful as an entrepreneur is
Mhm.
the power of relationships and networking and building teams. Because when you first start, you gotta do barters, like, "Sam, if you do this for me, I can do this for you."
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Until we come up together, we could do something really big. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of that in the beginning. So for me, I think that was the hardest lesson that I had to learn.
Yeah. I'm still dealing with that one. But yeah, I think, even something as simple as managing your finances, like when you're with a company, you got to check every 2 weeks. And now, money in, you got to think about what you got to pay now. You got to think about 5 months from now. You got to think about a year from now. Um,
Paying them taxes quarterly instead of annually, because that
and paying exactly that stuff. I mean, paying my, and then, and then just funding yourself. How much do you set aside for your own investments? Because ultimately, when you're with a company, you constantly are getting infusions of money. Hell, you're dealing with their money. So so I mean, I think the toughest thing for me really is just kind of getting into that mind state of, okay, I have to eat what I kill. And it's interesting because even when I was with the company, I still did my stuff on the side, but I never had to live off of it. So it's just so I think the first thing, that I'm learning about entrepreneurship is that you got to completely change how you think. But here's the thing, as daunting as it occasionally feels and how it first felt, I will honestly tell you there's no greater feeling than when you get paid for something and you realize that you got paid for you. Like you did this. Like you wrestled the bear. You know what I mean? Like you made this, like a company just didn't pay you because you were just sitting at a desk or sitting in an office. You know what I mean? You kind of had an opportunity to create your worth. So I think the toughest thing really has just been shifting from corporate to just entrepreneurship, which I'm telling you, hey, I'm alive 2 years later. So I said that to somebody recently. I'm still breathing. I mean, there's no company is just shelling in money to me. Like I'm surviving on my own. So that's great. I will tell you in this media landscape though, I think it's extra tough. And the main reason being is for everything we just discussed. I do realize that for the future, my company's WalkRight Media. So look up WalkRight, walkright.com. But as I kind of grow, I realize also that I have to think about where this is going. When I first set out to do the company, I was like, okay, cool. If you want a company that does production, that specializes in the African American audience, who better to go to than somebody that was with the company for 27 years that specialized in, creating content for the African American audience. But even now, seeing how the African American audience is all, they're not just sitting at home watching BET or watching anything for that matter. You have to just think of where they are, how to meet them there. So there's extra layers as I build this company out to kind of say, how do I spread it out? Maybe, do I open up the scope of the company to not just saying, okay, I'm African American for African American, but maybe I'm, hey, you want to get from out here to here? Let me help you. Like, so I say that to say, I guess the other hard thing is that the direction of your company shifts a little bit too.
I wanna speak to that because I think one of the reasons why I was so successful in my corporate career was because I understood that Black culture drives mainstream culture. So you can develop your campaigns and your strategies around Black cultural insights, and it's gonna drive mainstream culture. And I knew that, which is why I became very successful in the things that I did because it resonated across race, gender, ethnicity, right? So I think that's an important thing to point out because, I'm Black and I'm proud. We the greatest people on the planet in terms of driving culture. So I know we only have a few minutes left. Let's talk about
Oh,
that because
yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I was so successful in my corporate career
Hmm.
was because I understood that Black culture drives mainstream culture.
Hmm.
So you can develop your campaigns and your strategies around Black cultural insights, and it's gonna drive mainstream culture. And I knew
Hmm.
that, which is why I became very successful in the
Hmm.
things that I did because it resonated across race, gender, ethnicity, right? I think that's an important thing to point out because, I'm Black and I'm proud. We the greatest people on the planet. It's driving culture. So I know we only have a few minutes left. Let's talk about looking ahead 20 years. What do you think the entertainment industry will look like, and what will it take for content creators to stay relevant?
It'll take an audience that grows with you. Technology will be different. The way content is created and received will be different. So if you want to be successful, the best you could do is create a core audience, even if you're building it with 5 people, and just constantly grow with that audience. Like, if I was laying out a plan for somebody else other than myself, that's what I tell them. I was like, you got to almost have an Oprah like mentality. Like, hey, listen, no matter where Oprah went, they went. Like, you are your brand. Like, I tell everybody, like, right now, even if you're creating content, don't think of it as you're just creating content. Think of it as you're creating a brand, because that's the thing that'll last, your brand. Jay-Z probably hasn't dropped the album in who knows how long, but we still follow him because he's established his brand. And if you're trying to be relevant 20 years from now, you have to build a brand to go along with who you are, because the industry is going to change. That change is inevitable. Once again, as I build my company, I think of, how do we build brands? The model is going to shift. It's going to shift. There's no way around it. It's going to shift. You pick the brand. You can just take that brand and you put it into a digital media. You put it into cartoon. You put it whatever. It'll still be there. But that's how you have to look at it. Like, what is your brand? Because that's the only thing that's going to be able to survive innovation. That's the best I got.
So the Reinvention Code is about the truths we unlock through experience.
Uh-huh.
It's the wisdom we earn through growth, through transition, and stepping into new chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to share your code for it. So, like, one of my codes is, and we talked about this, your title is a container, but your talent is your currency. So if you can take your talent anywhere and generate financial stability for yourself if you believe in yourself, right? Because whatever title you hold, that's just your container, but your talent goes anywhere. So when you step out of a system that defined you for decades, what's the code you live by now?
The code I live by is, if I can keep on planting the seeds, then there'll always be a garden to feed me. The one code that I believe today, and I'll always believe, and people who've worked with me over the years, I've always believed in growing the next generation. I've always believed in growing who's coming next. Even as I do projects today, I think about, okay, 10 years from now, where's that person going to be? Because I know I'm going to get older. And the best thing I can do is plant the seeds to make sure that there's always a garden for everyone to eat. That's my code.
So you already said that people can follow you on WalkRight Media.
Yep, WalkRight, and pretty much every platform known to man. Still getting my TikTok up, but definitely WalkRight Media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, website, walkrightmedia.com. And that's pretty much the main ways to get with me. And, got a couple things cooking. Can't really talk about them now. I mean, of course, we can talk about our project if you want. And I always say onward and upwards. And the slogan for the company is, every creative idea begins with taking the very first step. WalkRight Media. That's the slogan for the company.
Awesome. So as always, if this content resonated with you, please like, share, and comment. And until the next episode, I wish you much peace, much joy, and many blessings. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Reinvention Code. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's stepping into their next season. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a conversation. Remember, reinvention isn't random. It has a code. I'll see you next time.